Hey everyone, it's Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. So, dry lot feeding, intensive feeding, feedlot feeding, goes by a lot of different names, but basically what we're talking about is we're talking about raising and taking care of our animals in captivity, either for a season or for the entire year round. Stay tuned to find out more. Alrighty, so check this out. I've got this really awesome looking pasture here. Look at this nice green grass. I've got some clover. I got some alfalfa here. And this looks like it would be something wonderful that I could let my animals eat down. But the reality is we can't do that. We can't let our animals eat this down because this is what we need. So this is after our last cutting that we did of hay, and we've got to let it grow up a little bit and put some of that power of the sun and nutrients and rain into the roots. That way next spring, when all this has died back, it'll come back nice and strong and we can have good grass and good pasture again next year. If I were to leave my animals out here until all of this was gone and eaten down to the dirt, we'd be in big trouble next year, and I'm gonna end up with a pasture that just looks like garbage. So here in the northern climates, what we have to do during the winter months is we have to take our animals and we have to put them onto a dry lot situation where they have feed that's getting fed to them every day, which includes hay that's getting fed to them every day, and it includes grain that's getting fed to them every day. So I want to take some time today to talk to you about that and talk to you about what it takes to actually keep these animals over during the winter. So we dry lot animals, our sheep and our goats, for about 6 months out of the year. It's going into November now. It's actually Halloween. It's like 40 degrees outside, going on -2. I hope you pumpkin spice people are happy with yourselves for what you've done to me, because I could enjoy a little bit warmer weather, but instead, you know, I don't know what's wrong with you people, but some of you just like the darn cold weather, and we don't. So all joking aside, from November till usually May 1st, we keep our animals on a dry lot situation. So I'm not a math magician, but that's November, December, January, February, March, April. Yep, that's 6 months out of the year. So that's 6 months out of the year that I've got to feed hay and I have to feed grain. So it's very important that we get as much hay as we can saved up. And then we go to this dry lot, and then we've got some stuff that we got to consider. Now, I know some of you don't even have pasture at all and you raise your animals on a dry lot all year round, but we've been getting questions from some of our viewers, especially my friend down in Mississippi. He's been asking me, how many animals can I keep in confinement? My answer to you is this: you can keep as many as you can fit comfortably, but you have to be prepared for a couple things. One, you got to be prepared to feed them. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. The second thing that we're going to talk about is you have to be prepared to clean up after them. And along with the cleaning up after them goes, you run into two specific issues. That is coccidiosis and worm load. You know, when these animals are living in confinement all the time and they're constantly defecating in the same area over and over and over, cleanliness is very, very important for you, because they will pick up coccidiosis and they will pick up a worm load over and over and over and over and over. They're always exposed to it. Where if we're out on pasture, we don't run into as much of that issue because they got lots of wide open spaces to roam over. So I know some of you have this mental idea. You think, well, some of the stuff that Tim talks about is just for big operations. This doesn't affect us small people, and you couldn't be more wrong. Raising in captivity, like a lot of you do with 3-4 animals, you're at much higher risk for worm loads and for coccidiosis affecting your flock than we are running all of our animals out here on wide open pasture. So that's something that I want you to consider. So with that being said, let's have a little talk about feed. So when you're crunching your numbers and you're talking about feed, I want you to think about the fact that your animals on a bare minimum are going to have 1 flake per head per day. and they're going to have 1 pound per head per day of good quality grain, some kind of feed that's made for them. And that's not counting everything else that goes into it, the medications, the handling that you have to do. We're just talking about feed. So when you're trying to figure out, okay, do I want to have a bunch of animals so I can sell them at the sale barn or whatever so I can make a profit, I want you to consider just simply crunch the numbers. There's about 14 flakes in a bale of hay. Average, okay? And everything I'm using is average. So don't beat me up in the comments too much about, well, Tim, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I know, but we've got thousands and thousands of people that view our videos, so I've got to give you the average. And the average is 1 flake per head per day, 1 pound of grain per head per day, and it's going to fluctuate throughout this 6-month period or 7-month period or whatever it is where you're at. But I want you to crunch the numbers. There's about 14 flakes of hay in a bale of hay. You got to get 1 flake per head per day. So just crunch the numbers and juggle it up and see, okay, how much is it going to cost me? How many babies am I going to have? And just take it from there. You can take your ewes or your does, multiply your ewes and does by 1.5, and that'll give you about the number of living babies that you're going to have next year. I'm aware that some of you are going to have twins. I know some of you are going to have singles. Some of you are going to have losses. That's why we're just going to take that number of does and ewes, we're going to multiply it times 1.5. So after you crunch the numbers, see how much it's going to cost you in grain, see how much it's going to cost you in feed, multiply by 1.5 and see what you're left with. And that'll give you a good idea of, okay, first of all, is this even worth it for me, dollars and cents wise, or am I going to put myself through this for no reason whatsoever? So with that being said, the next thing I want to talk with you about is manure management and what that means to you. So let's head into our pasture, into our dry lot, and we'll talk about that. Let's head over that way. All right, shortest promo ever. If you don't follow us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook. If you're not a member of the forum on Facebook, which is Linessa Farms Tack Box, check out Linessa Farms Tack Box. And if you haven't checked out Foundation Feed yet, which is owned by Linessa Farms, we've got feed for you. We've got the best feed in the U.S. made right here in the United States. Super high protein content. Most of our feeds are 40% protein content and we ship all over the United States for $1 or less. And if you live local and want to pick up here at Linessa Farms, we sell feed very, very cheap. With that being said, let's get back to the video. So we're over here at the pasture. I got to be honest with you. I'm sorry, I keep calling it pasture. What I meant to say is we're over here at the dry lot. Now that's very funny that I call it a dry lot, because if you look at this right now, and those of you that do this for a living, you know what this is. This is typical fall time stuff and typical springtime stuff, right? It's muddy sloppiness. We have got, no kidding, in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, we have gotten over 4 inches of rain here in Northwest Indiana, and this is nasty. Now inside of our stalls and inside the barns it's dry, but out here this is a nasty mess, and unfortunately this is just one of the downfalls of having a dry lot. When we say dry lot, what we mean is there's no grass or anything for them to eat in here. So this is what you could be left with. Now, a lot of that depends on your soil conditions. For instance, we live in an area where we've got very hard blue clay, and as you know, blue clay does not drain very good at all. So that's something that you got to keep an eye on. If you live in a very sandy soil or a very loamy soil, you may be able to get away with it. But the problem that you're going to run into, no matter where you live, no matter what you do, no matter what the climate, is that you're going to run into manure. And it's very, very important when you live and work in a dry lot scenario like this. Cleanliness is of the utmost importance. You have to mentally be willing to know that you are going to have to go in there and clean up after these animals as frequently as necessary, and the more you have, the more cleaning you're going to have to do. You cannot let the manure build up. You're going to have bedding, you're going to have good bedding, and you're going to have thick bedding, and you can't let it get wet, you can't let it get soaked, you can't let it get full of manure, because you're going to run into all kinds of problems. The first problem that you're going to run into is you're going to have a lot of ammonia buildup and a lot of volatile gases that these animals are going to be breathing in, and you're going to set them up for some serious trouble when it comes to respiratory diseases and respiratory infections like pneumonia, barn pneumonia, all kinds of stuff like that, various fevers, listeriosis, listeria and all kinds of other issues. So I don't want you to do that. You have to be able to clean up. You have to have somewhere to put your manure. That's the other thing. You got to have somewhere to put it. I don't care if you want to make manure piles, if you want to make some kind of piles. If you look, I have a video that's on manure management. You can see it right here. But that's one of the biggest issues that people run into. It's going to build up and it's going to become an issue. And for those of you that have been doing this for a while, you already know what I'm talking about. So with that manure comes the respiratory diseases and everything else. And on top of that, now you've got coccidiosis, which we've talked to you a lot about. And we talked to you about worming. And, you know, when you're in that confined area, that's the stuff that you're going to run into. So I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I just want you to get it through your head that, you know, just because you can fit all these animals in one area doesn't mean that you should, and you really need to crunch the numbers. Again, figure up your time. Figure up how much time it's going to take you to clean up manure and go out and feed them every day and water them every day and keep their water clean and everything else clean, because that's very, very important. And it's going to make the difference between having healthy animals and not healthy animals. So that's my short answer for you when you think about dry lotting your animals and what goes into it. Again, we've got the feed aspect, we've got the coccidiosis aspect, we've got the worming aspect, and we've got the general cleanliness that's involved as well. Everybody has to have a place that they can get to, stay dry, stay warm, and stay comfortable. Don't make the mistake of having them packed in there super close together. And as we've talked about a million times before, a lot of people, they think that these are dogs and they want them being locked up in this environment where it's like super tight and super warm. They don't need that. You shouldn't have that. A three-sided shelter is perfectly fine as long as they can get out of the weather and out of the wind. And as far as the cold is concerned, again, a three-sided shelter is more than enough. You batten down the hatches too much with these structures and you're going to be fighting respiratory distress and respiratory disease all year long, or at least all the time long that you're in a dry lot situation. I guess the other quick thing that I wanted to talk about, and just something that I want you to consider, is there is no off day when it comes to raising sheep and goats. If you decide you're going to go on vacation, you're going to go somewhere, whatever, someone's going to have to be there. Someone's going to have to check on your animals. Someone's going to have to feed your animals. Someone's going to have to check on the water. These animals cannot go 24 hours without having someone lay eyes on them, which you should be doing anyways, because what's going to end up happening is an accident's going to happen. Someone's going to get hurt. You're going to run out of feed. The water line's going to freeze up. Something bad's going to happen. And then you're going to be in a big, big world of hurt. So with that being said, I am Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.